Welcome to Read Your Comics. Today we're looking at a Todd McFarlane masterpiece, Hulk 340.
Whoa, Dave. This is my channel. We're looking at Hulk 340.
Oh, sorry.
All right, continuing the Peter David Todd McFarlane run with probably the most important issue of this whole run. And I have my guest today, the McFarlane expert of YouTube, West Coast Davengers. How's it going, Dave?
Hey Daryl, it's great. I'm having like a little bit of deja vu only because we recorded this already, but I forgot to hit record.
Well, we're gonna do it a lot better this time.
yeah. Thanks for having me, man. This is it's just one of the greatest single issues of my lifetime and of Marvel Comics. And just the cover alone beats more issues out of their entire cover to cover.
Yeah. How many times do you think this cover has been homaged?
I mean, I can think of probably 5 that I saw at Emerald City Comic Con yesterday. I mean, Todd's homaged it before. Clayton Crane's homaged it. Yeah, it's iconic beyond iconic because, to my knowledge, it's the first time that this kind of concept was used. And Ed Piskor did such a great homage to it for Hulk Grand Design for Jim Rugg.
It's amazing. I mean, it truly is.
But the concept of it, the reflection of Wolverine's claws. I've seen style parody homages where there was an X-Men cover I saw recently that had Wolverine reflected in Cyclops' visor, which had 3 claw marks on it. So it's inspired a lot of people to do these kinds of reflections and covers. And
yeah, and the twist on it for sure. Even just today, I was scrolling on Instagram and I saw somebody posted a Spider-Man book that was it was Wolverine in the same pose, but it was Spider-Man in the reflection. People just love putting different characters in there in the same, like you said, the same style of it.
Yeah, there's a TMNT IDW book that has Shredder. I forget who's reflected in it, but an homage to this cover. And the energy of it is just something else. Like a lot of times in comic book covers, what's on the cover doesn't happen, doesn't even come close to happening on the interior of the book. What this cover tells us is it's about to go down.
Yeah, like in our first recording, as you mentioned, a lot like the famous Silver Surfer #4 cover with Thor and the Silver Surfer. I mean, you got 2 iconic characters charging at each other, and it tells you exactly what you want out of that issue, right?
Yeah, and it's a perfect what's the word I'm looking for? It just the way that it's designed, it fills up all of the space on the cover with the exception of a little bit. It doesn't crowd it too much. There's nothing in there that shouldn't be there. And the blue and then the yellow Incredible Hulk logo, the blue matching or contrasting with Wolverine's costume, like everything on this cover hits. And in my opinion, it is not just McFarlane's best cover, but it is the most iconic cover post Bronze Age.
Oh, that's a pretty bold statement. McFarlane's done some pretty good covers himself, and
I know.
I mean, it's definitely up there. I mean, a lot of people probably collect this book strictly on the cover alone, whether they care about this whole run or not. But I mean, this is one of those books that they just want it for the cover, if nothing else. And because of that, I'm going to point out this is the first cover McFarlane's done on this run since he became the Hulk artist. The very first issue he did without Peter David, and then after that, it had been Geiger and Bob McLeod doing the covers up to this point. So now we get this McFarlane cover on the biggest issue, the biggest matchup we could possibly imagine.
Yeah, and McFarlane is inked on the cover by Bob Wyacek, and Wyacek does a great job in keeping that McFarlane energy without really compromising anything. And one of the other things that I point out about this cover, before you know what's going on in the interior, before you know the plot and why they might be yelling, like there is so much audible energy on this cover. The two of them
both
are
screaming.
Yeah, yeah, and you just think about, like, a movie trope or something when, like, there's a big fight scene and it's 2 powerhouses going at it. They're screaming at each other with not words, just noises, and
Yeah.
that's what this conveys, and, it just everything about it. Plus, the size and shape of Wolverine's claws on the cover are not how McFarlane typically draws them,
No,
but
and
for this cover, it made sense.
yeah, I mean, if they drew the claws the way they should be coming out of the position of that hand, this would not work.
Right.
So that's where there has to be that a little bit of warping of reality to make
Sure.
this happen. But it's like 100% acceptable.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's 3 katanas coming out of his hand instead of claws, which I'm okay with. And you had pointed out the trade dress too.
That's right. This is the first time we've got this. Well, it's not the first time it's ever happened on the Hulk, but this is the return of this like brick Hulk trade dress. Because before it was this very bland, just block letters of the Incredible Hulk. Not very incredible, but I
Mhm.
think this is my favorite kind of trade dress on the Hulk.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever they get away from this, I think it's less interesting. I really do. So we've got McFarlane back on doing the cover art, which he'll continue to do the cover art now through the rest of his run.
Mhm.
And we've got the brick Hulk trade dress. I mean, this in a lot of ways, this is kind of the real peak of the run.
Yeah, this is where McFarlane starts inking himself on the interiors. You've got kind of like almost a straightforward storyline. I mean, it's collected in this trade that I have. It's called Ground Zero, and it all kind of revolves around like, well, we'll get to the
Yeah.
leader.
Last thing I want to say about the cover, though, is I know McFarlane has said that he gave this cover away. He doesn't come out and say it, but he did give it to Peter David as a
Mhm.
gift back in the day, which is crazy to think. I mean, we're just talking about this being his most iconic cover. McFarlane probably
Yeah,
could have sat on this and sold this for who knows how much today. He could have sold it then probably for, quite a bit of money, but
sure.
he did gift it to Peter David. And I wonder if because I've heard Peter David ask McFarlane when they were working together on this run, like, who do you want to draw? And he said Wolverine. I guess he got the okay too from the ex editorial to like use him, but he wrote an issue with Wolverine specifically for McFarlane to draw it. So that maybe that's why I gave it to him.
And
Dave has done it. Dave has actually had a conversation with Todd McFarlane before, and maybe that's something if he gets to do it again, he will be able to ask him.
yeah, and you can watch that on my channel. I will say this to that story you just told, if that is accurate, and I assume it is,
Mhm.
it's probably the inspiration for Todd these days saying that when he hires an artist, he asks the artist, "What do you want to draw?" And
Mhm.
so I'm sure he learned a lot of great things from working with a guy like Peter David, even if they didn't get along later in life.
Yeah.
I bet you if I were to ask him about working with Peter David, he would probably look back at it at least somewhat fondly.
Yeah. At this point, I mean, it's probably any grudge they had, I'm sure was water. And who knows how much of that was even real, to be
True.
honest.
True. Very
But
true.
before we jump into, I will say Peter David has had a lot of health issues over the years, and as far as I know, he sold this original art,
Mm,
but I think he sold it because he went through a pretty messy divorce. But he is having health issues right now. He does have a GoFundMe. If I'll put that in the description below, if you guys can help Peter David out, you should, because these creators, they were not taken care of. They created these wonderful things that, I mean, here we are close to 40 years later talking about
yeah.
this book, and he's struggling with health insurance. So if you can donate, $5 to him, do it. it
Sure.
it'd be
Anything helps. And like you said, we got to take care of these people because the companies don't.
Nope, nope. And Peter David doesn't like have a stable of creator owned stuff that he's still getting like royalties from to
Right.
this day to kind of supplement not working.
All right.
Anything else about this cover before we go ahead and jump into the book itself?
No, I mean it'll forever live in my brain and it'll always be my favorite.
All right. Let's jump in to the very first page and we'll look at the credits. And as you said, Todd is only credited for art in this one.
That's right. Yeah.
So he is
That-
inking himself. No more Jim Sanders III.
Right. So we get full on Todd, and that's the best Todd. And we'll be talking about the colorist too, Petra Scotese, in halfway through the book.
Our title is Vicious Circle. I'm speculating that is due to Wolverine making his first appearance in this very title.
Yeah.
And this is, at least as far as we could discern, their first encounter with each other since Hulk 180, 181, 182.
Yes, and that is alluded to in one location in the book that we'll point out, but it seems that way, that they didn't square off and even really interact with each other in between, that first appearance and then now, which
Yeah.
I guess was about 13 or 14 years.
Yeah. Yeah. This has a Indencia is February 1988. So this really probably came out like November, December of 87. And what Hulk 181 was 75, I guess.
I think so, yeah. I think
So
you
yeah.
got. But yeah, we get the opening page, opening title, a little bit of narration from a woman holding a snow globe, which for the uninitiated can probably still figure out that that's Betty.
Mhm. Yeah, if you know the Hulk's history, even if this is your first issue jumping in, as long as you know that the Hulk and the Hulk's, or Bruce Banner's on again, off again, girlfriend, up to this point, wife is Betty Ross Banner. It's a good bet that that's her hand with the snow globe going. But opening
Yeah.
page, not too much going on. We see a van. You see the snowstorm. That's kind of setting our stage, our weather conditions of what's going on.
I know most comic book artists are pretty verbal and vocal, pretty vocal about not liking, not enjoying drawing cars. And Todd does not really know how to draw a van from a head-on angle.
Yeah, it's kind of just now this is a weird van. It's a shield van, right? It's not just
Yeah,
like your
yeah.
standard RV, but still, I mean, there's just not much happening there to like excite you with with the design of that front on vehicle. He tried to
No.
obscure some with the headlights as much as he could, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it was a good job at doing that.
Yeah. But now we're gonna jump inside the RV there and see Clay, who I guess is upset about the snow kind of bogging him down. The Hulk is feeling very grumpy. It's nighttime and he's cooped up inside this RV
Yeah,
and
yeah.
wants to get out.
He does, and he's a little bit of a brat, but that's okay. I mean, he's the Hulk. He's allowed to be, because they're concerned that if they piss him off while he's in the van, he might actually end up killing them. So they let him go. But man, look at all that great McFarlane detail on the Hulk's face.
That close-up panel, I think, is probably one of my favorites of this page. Just you really see those McFarlane noodles, like even the eye itself. It's like a little beady eye
Yeah,
underneath
yeah.
that gigantic brow.
Yeah, the texture on the skin with the noodling, makes you think like, his skin is indestructible. It's maybe even leathery, like
Mhm.
a alligator, or even what we know in paintings and drawings as a dinosaur skin, lots of cracks and stuff.
Like
Um,
an elephant,
Elephant.
elephant
There we go.
hide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there we go. Perfect. Even better than my dinosaur,
Dinosaur hide, elephant hide. I mean, it's probably kind of similar.
unless you
Um,
believe that the dinosaurs weren't real. Uh,
well, I do. I don't know about you, Dave. um, we get a Felix in here.
yeah. Yeah, early Felix from Todd. You did this is second issue in a row, and maybe the
Yep.
second appearance of Felix in a
Yep.
Todd book.
They picked this up at a fair in the last issue. So it's kind of interesting, like issue to issue continuity of keeping the Felix around in the Shield van while they're on this road trip to find the Gamma Bomb stockpile.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we got to lighten it up a little bit by putting a cartoon in there. But yeah, the plot is there's this crazy blizzard going on. It is very atypical for a place like Texas.
Yes, yeah, because they are in Dallas, Texas, which is kind of how we're going to get this meetup with Wolverine because the Fall of the Mutants story is going on, and the X-Men have been prophesized to die in Dallas. So
Mm,
that's where they're on their way. They're in the Blackbird. They're heading to Dallas. Um, I think Rick and the Hulk and Clay are traveling from Colorado to Louisiana at this point, and that's
okay.
why they are in Texas. So, and they get stuck in the snowstorm that's being caused by this Fall of the Mutants event that's happening. So that's
And
kind of good Marvel continuity, bringing this together without being so in your face. Like you read this and you don't feel like you have to go read Fall of the Mutants
right.
to understand what's going on, but it is a plot device that gets them together for this meetup.
And speaking of this meetup, we get a look at the X-Men for the first time, drawn by Todd. And first off the bat, we know that the same barber or hairstylist is taking care of Wolverine and Rogue.
I think Wolverine probably tipped her off. He's like, you know what? You need a good look. I know this person that fixes my hair. You should go check them out.
And also Rogue maybe influenced down the line Wolfsbane because that's the same haircut too.
Yeah, she'll have that as well. I mean, we don't get Beast in here, but Beast also is sporting this haircut at this point as well. So popular in the 1980s with the X characters.
I wasn't really reading the X-Men during the Fall of Mutants. I probably I probably bought my first issue right after because I definitely had some Silvestri stuff. But what an interesting lineup of the X-Men at this time. Havoc, Dazzler, Betsy Braddock, Longshot, and Rogue and Wolverine.
Yeah,
Not your typical X-Men lineup.
nope. Now Storm was part of the team, but I think she was already in Dallas with Forge, and that's why they were heading
Okay.
there to go. So I wasn't reading X-Men really at this time either. I did read Fall of the Mutants many years later when I put an X-Men run together and read it. But rereading this to do this discussion with you, I was like, well, where does this? I know this is happening in Fall of the Mutants, so I went to my X-Men box and I
Mhm.
pulled out issue number Uncanny X-Men number 224,
Mhm.
and they do show them boarding the Blackbird in this issue and heading to Dallas. And I thought that was a pretty nice little continuity break. So this is kind of taking place during this issue, or well, not during this issue because then that issue cuts to some Storm stuff, but it's taking place between issues 224 and 225 of Uncanny X-Men. So any continuity people out there that want to fill in the gap, there you go.
And kudos to Marvel for having that kind of tightness on the Marvel offices to have everybody kind of be like, all right, well, if you're gonna do this, this is where they are, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and so maybe Claremont and Peter David were talking, and that's where the conversation happened. But yeah, I appreciate that about Marvel at that time, even if I didn't love the writing completely at that time.
I mean, that's one of the things for me that I think always felt like Marvel was like a real world in a way, is that when there
Yeah,
would be like little things, like maybe something that was kicking off like a big snowstorm in one book, it affected another book.
yeah,
It's not that, like, Spider-Man had to go be part of that bigger story, but if it's like a blizzard dumping on New York, you're like, oh, well, Spider-Man's stuck in this blizzard too, doing his own Spider-Man thing. And it's stuff like that I think that I loved about Marvel in this era. It's
yeah.
hard to sustain over a long, long time, but it definitely worked in this like 80s time period.
Sure. Yeah, it worked with the Infinity Gauntlet too. And once again, I appreciate that it doesn't even have to be much of a big detail, just that minor detail makes a big difference. Yeah. So we got the X-Men in the Blackbird, in the Storm, and it's just the hair's great, whatever. But
The hair is great.
uh they're having their conversation about it, and and then we get this page with a close up of a character that you really enjoyed seeing.
Yeah, I love the Havoc design, this Neil Adams Havoc outfit, and I thought it was just awesome to get this one panel from McFarlane, like really highlighting that headpiece.
Yeah, yeah, and then I think it's probably the only time he draws Havoc in at least in his career in published work, and, I agree with you that it's a character I never connected with, but I loved the design and the sleekness of, everything. Even if it's poofy, it's still sleek looking,
Hmm.
the
Yep.
headpiece. He reminded me of it's kinda like if you look at him without that, it's just generic superhero guy,
Hmm.
but with it, it's Havoc, it's iconic.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Havoc is a character that, like you said, it's not that I really connected with him. My first introduction to Havoc was in the Wolverine Havoc miniseries Meltdown,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is a very odd story to read, but incredible to look at.
Oh my god, it's Kent Williams and John Muth, and it's
Hmm.
yeah, it's a beautiful book.
Yeah, and we could sidebar on that probably for a few minutes, so I won't keep going on about it. But um, with that probably actually came out about this time. Well, close to this
Mm,
time.
yeah, somewhere around that time.
But then we got also Long Shot with his rock star '80s mullet
Yeah,
and
yeah,
his
and it
very Art Adams ish, sticking with the stylistic tropes.
yeah, yeah, there's something that Art Adams does where there's not a ton of detail on the face, like, no wrinkles on the skin, so it's very spatial. There's a lot of
Hmm.
space in between the eyes and the nose and the mouth and the chins, the way he drew chins, like, McFarlane was definitely paying his respects to the way that Art Adams not only drew, but created the look of Longshot.
Yeah.
That's who creates him.
So they get a warning light in the Blackbird. Uh, Wolverine hits the beeping button, which makes it dodge a projectile coming at him, and it's the Hulk who's not attacking them. He just is jumping into the snowstorm and happens to cross paths with them.
Yeah, the Hulk's disregarding the fact that there is, airway travel, that this is not empty skies. He's just jumping through it like, "I can't see anything, but I'm gonna launch myself like a Mack truck going 500 miles an hour into midair." And,
Yeah,
that last panel is, "What the heck did I just miss?" Well, he spoke a little too soon.
yep. Because the immediate next panel is he hits something, and it is a passenger commercial plane.
It's a 740 or 747, and, maybe he's the reason that Pan Am went out of business because he literally almost kills every person on board.
The PR disaster fallout from them trying to fly this through the snowstorm and then the plane wrecking is was too much.
Yeah, yeah, Pan Am is no longer with us, but, yeah, a very reckless Hulk, and a great way to set off where we go from here because the plane obviously starts to, fall out of the sky, and Wolverine tells Rogue, "Use your super strength, your super flight, all that stuff, and rip that engine off the plane."
Now, I will say, I think there is a failure of like communicating Rogue getting out of the Blackbird to be the
Yeah.
one to go rip it off. I mean, Wolverine says it and she says okay, but you don't actually see her doing it. You see her with her awesome hair. You see the Blackbird, which McFarlane doing a solid job on the Blackbird.
Yeah.
I don't think of McFarlane as a vehicle guy, like we were saying at the beginning, but he does the Blackbird awesome in these couple of panels. And then you just see the engine falling to the ground. So
Right.
somewhere in
The
there,
engine's falling out of the sky, some yeah.
well, yeah, yeah, it's like you see the plane going by the Blackbird, but you see the passenger plane going by, and Wolverine saying, "Go take care of it." You never see Rogue like out actually doing it. Then you just see the engine that she ripped off kind of falling down.
Yeah, it's shortcut storytelling, which I get it, the reason why they
Mhm.
did it, um, because they're trying to get to a fight,
Yeah,
uh, but the narration helps it a little bit, but
yeah,
it does we coulda used a couple extra panels, especially give us a Rogue action.
yeah. I mean,
This
she's
is
doing
a
something exciting here. I didn't necessarily need to see her jumping out of the plane, I guess, or like opening the door or the hatch or something. But
yeah.
show her
But
ripping the plane off. But
yeah, yeah, give us some action with a different X-Man. But
minor critique for an awesome issue, though. It
yes.
is forgiven. It is forgiven.
And the narration tells us, it says, look, throw it over, drop it over a portion with no lights. It's probably a lake or a forest. And
Mhm.
we flipped to the next page to see where that engine lands, and it's in the worst possible spot.
So something else landed in that area with no lights, and it was the Hulk. And he got there first. And I love this, like, hold it. What's that whistling? Sounds like something falling, which reminds me of like a cartoon or something when they'd hear like the bomb
Yeah.
like whistling down on them. And so it's the engine and it lands right on the Hulk, and he's like, was that somebody's idea of a joke?
It's Hulk is having a terrible day. He's hungry, he's pissed off, and then a jet engine falls on him. And
And I guess I'll point out too that they mentioned it earlier on that because of the snowstorm, it's obscured the moon and any
Yeah.
sunlight coming in. So the Hulk is at his crankiest right now.
Yeah, he's super cranky, and when you drop a jet engine on a cranky Hulk, it's not going to end well. And what I want to point out, I mean, great action with the jet engine falling, and a great afterwards of him coming up out of the wreckage, but it took me 2 reads to realize what was going on in that bottom panel. And that is Wolverine standing on the plane, I guess on the ground, with the jet engine ripped off, and Wolverine's kind of introducing himself to the reader in case the reader's unfamiliar, and then kind of giving a little background as to what he's going through right now and sensing.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that it was the plane until you pointed it out to me earlier. I didn't pick up on that either. I saw Wolverine's silhouette, and yeah, he's going through the typical like I'm Wolverine, I'm blah 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 blah. And then he also mentions how he senses something. It smells like the Hulk, but different.
Yeah. Yeah, and he doesn't know. He says something, I didn't think that was possible. I'd love to check it out, but I can't leave the team because he's currently leading the X-Men, and
Mhm.
from there we shift the scene a little bit.
So we're gonna get the leader, and this is also our first time seeing the leader in his uh, costume here. So since he has returned, and McFarlane gave him his uh, quite fashionable new headpiece, we've mostly just seen him like wearing trench coats and stuff. So now we get like a costume, and his buddy Half-Life here is also in a costume.
Yeah, and Half-Life's an interesting character, kind of like a bumbling idiot, but yeah, Todd really went for the scrotum look. Pretty hard on the leader, and not to be outdone by making it a little bit uncomfortable looking, gives him a handlebar mustache. So we go from uncomfortable looking to, man, don't let your kids anywhere near this guy.
I mean, you got to up the ante because the old leader just had a straight up, very phallic, up and down head with a pencil mustache. So Todd took it in like a similar yet different direction and gave him the full on Metallica handlebar mustache.
Oh yeah. Uh, but this is a great little scene. Like the pacing of this comic is absolutely perfect because we know what's coming, right? The cover told us what's coming, and we need to lead up to it just a little bit, but lead up to it in at least an interesting way. And the leader, the storyline a little bit better than me, but he's just trying to take control of weapons, and so that's what we get a little bit of.
Right. So there's this gamma bomb stockpile that the government is hiding. And that is what Clay and Rick and Bruce slash the Hulk are going to try to like find and destroy, while also the leader is trying to get a hold of this stockpile for his own purposes. And this
Yeah,
is another interesting scene of this like this other story happening because this event that's happening in Fall of the Mutants with the snow and stuff, the leader sees like, oh, there's some other thing going on. I need to move a little faster before somebody else destroys the world before I get a chance to hold it hostage.
these villains don't really have they don't have a lot of foresight. They're just like, I'm gonna take over the world. I'm gonna destroy the planet, or I'm gonna hold it hostage. What good is destroying a planet or threatening an entire planet? Where are you gonna live after you blow it up?
Yeah, I mean, I think he just wants to. I think he's just wanting to hold it hostage, not destroy it. But he's like, oh, I got to do it before this other whatever's happening that's causing this unusual weather event. And he's not even worried about what that really is, just that it's interfering with his own plans. But like you were saying, for pacing, that's giving us the little nugget of the ongoing story that's happening in the title.
Yeah.
And it's just enough. It's really just this one page for the most part before we get into the meat of what we're really here for based on the cover.
And there is three, and as we flip the page, there are really three stories going on because Betty is reflecting on in the next page. We come back to some of her narration, and she's reflecting on her relationship with Bruce and obviously the Hulk and where he is right now. And she's
Mhm.
worried.
Yep.
And then we set the scene. The blizzard's still going. There's this Patty Time truck uh, with a cow wearing a chef's hat, which has got a giant Hulk-sized hole in it. And the National Guard's been called. And people, soldiers typically aren't this stupid, but in comic books, we can make them stupid.
Yeah, they're gonna shoot at the Hulk like any idiot. Like, I mean, why does anybody? It's like shooting at Superman or the Hulk. Is it just like instinct? Is like, I fire my gun. I know this is not gonna do anything, but that's all I got. Might as well try.
Yeah, and the Hulk, that another great job of Todd just highlighting the eyes, the whites of the eyes,
Uh-huh.
the
No, yeah.
furrowed brow and the teeth. And he's angry. And you won't like the Hulk when he's angry, but he comes out with a meat stick
Yep.
and they start shooting at him.
Yeah. And he has that like drool or meat hanging out of his mouth. And really, even if you look at his cheeks, it's like his mouth is full.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. He's just
like
trying
the
to
cheek
eat.
with the yeah.
If you apply common knowledge to this, like if the Hulk walked into a McDonald's, everybody's going to run out screaming. So let him break into a meat truck and eat meat by himself. Why are we shooting
Yeah.
at him? The man's just he's just trying to eat.
He's just hungry. So I
Yeah.
love this panel at the bottom though too, with the Hulk holding the meat wagon up above his
Yeah.
head. And again, McFarlane does a great job of making the Hulk look massive, but
Hmm.
squat enough to fit in these panels. And the way the truck is being contorted too, it's not like he drew a big stiff box just above his head. That I think that's how a lot of artists would probably take the shortcut.
Yeah, and it's always an angle, like a little bit of an angle. It very much brings to mind the issues that we went through a couple weeks ago, 330, whatever it was, the X Factor issue. When he first encounters the X Factor, uh, the team, he picks up a train car and it's at
Mhm.
an angle like that.
Yep.
And to me, it evokes McFarlane obviously knowing how to pack into a panel, but also a little bit of that Action Comics #1 cover,
Mhm.
where Superman's holding the card at an angle, and
Yep.
there's more real estate on that cover, but it's still, you probably could fit that into a panel this size.
Yeah, and it's almost like a little bit of him, like the Superman when you're talking about, he's kind of bringing the car like forward, but
Yeah,
in this one, he's holding it back, like he's building up the
about to
momentum
throw it.
to throw it.
Yeah, and well, look at what he does.
He throws it. Great
Mhm.
first person perspective there too from the Hulk with his
Yeah,
hands throwing it forward.
yeah, and he's not trying to kill the soldiers because he
Nope.
easily could have if he wanted to. He's just trying to get them to run, and they do.
Yep. Yeah, he like throws it at their truck, I guess, and then they run off smartly this time instead of standing
Mhm.
around trying to empty their guns on him. They're like, we better get out of here. This is above our pay grade."
Once again, just like to point out the improvement in the storytelling from 4 issues ago, where I was complaining that X Factor's fighting Hulk in a factory.
Mhm.
For 2 pages, there's nobody in that factory, and then all of a sudden there's 150 people standing around. This is the opposite of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have been kind of silly though, since Rogue did throw the thing where there was no lights. So, but it was obviously close enough to a road or something where this meat wagon was. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, there is a building off in the distance there in the bottom panel. Well, no, that's back at the airport with Wolverine, I guess.
But plus the Hulk can move long distances very quickly. So he could
Yes.
have jumped away once again. But it's just the pacing of this is fantastic. He destroys the truck with the other truck. We get a transitional panel of the flame sizzling, and
Hmm.
then uh Wolverine's like, "Wait, where did that come from? I got to go check it out." But he still doesn't want to leave the team, but he does. He goes off to check out the blaze and the explosion that just happened.
Yeah. Great inner dialogue too, without using thought bubbles. But
Yeah.
he's like, I've got to help wherever they can. I pull on my mask and he takes off.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
And
that's how we're going
then
to get Wolverine away from the rest of the X-Men, because you really don't want. We kind of just had an X-Men versus Hulk, just a few
yeah.
issues, and all we really want is Wolverine versus the Hulk here.
Um so we have this next panel of Wolverine standing by the fire, and you can just tell that McFarlane is doing it right. He is size appropriate in this. He is short, he is stocky, but he's not 6.5 feet tall. He's 5'1", 5'2", or something like that. And from that, from the shadows, comes the menace of the Hulk. And I absolutely love this third panel on that page of 65% of the Hulk's face, and then everything else is either not in there or obscured.
This whole sequence, I think, is great, with Wolverine and the lighting from the fire to the Hulk kind of coming out of that wreckage that's really back there behind him. I mean, you can see the Hulk kind of
Oh
small.
yeah, yeah.
I
He's
think
he's
that's the first
blue,
I've
but
even
he's
noticed
small.
that. I thought it was just wreckage before, but yeah, the Hulk is actually back there. Kind of, it looks like a tunnel underneath a bridge or something.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
then the
yeah. That's
shadow on the
exactly
Hulk's
what it is.
Yeah, and the shadow on the Hulk's face in the second panel, and then that third panel. And the Hulk knows exactly who this is
Yeah,
right
yeah.
away.
He is not surprised. He knows who it is, and he tries to get the jump on Wolvie, and Wolvie basically says the only hint is the growl that the Hulk makes right before he's about to make contact with Wolverine. And what does Wolverine do? Pops the claws.
Yep. Like, I do think that dialogue box where it says "I pop my claws" is a little late, because you got the snick right above it,
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
love that, like, Wolverine's got his back turned, and you see snick, so he knows. And then the motion of him like turning the quick spin around to slash and gets him on the arm, I guess.
yeah, yeah. He gets him on the arm, and I think that you're right that I pop my claws box is a little late. If they broke the panel and they put it right under the snicked, that would have been more
Mhm.
effective. Um, but still, either way, I when I read stuff like this, my brain just automatically goes to thinking of how this would be shot in a movie,
Mhm.
and this is perfect. This is cinematically perfect. I think that's just how I read books, and everything just translates to movies to me. Um, since I was a kid.
I mean, I could see the camera swing on this for sure. You're
Yeah.
gonna get, like, kind of a close up on Wolverine, and like a pan over as the Hulk comes into the camera, and then the camera swing around with him on the slash.
Yep, yep, and I do love the next box that says, after the reason why I guess that this box is here is because of the sentence of "I pop my claws, but not my cork,"
Yeah.
meaning that like he didn't go for the killing stroke with this.
Yeah.
Um, he knew that he was going to get him in the arm because he's trying to change from being that murderous Wolverine that we all love.
This is definitely the era of Wolverine doing everything he can to control that berserker rage that's inside him. I mean, it was like the reoccurring trope constantly within his own. Well, he doesn't have his own series yet. He's close, but within the X-Men books that he's in, even his the Frank Miller miniseries, a lot of
Yeah,
that is about him, trying to control that animal instinct that's in him. So, I mean, that was a huge part of Wolverine's character. And at this point, I mean, he's the leader of the
yeah,
X-Men.
He
So
can't be killing.
he's trying to be mature.
Yeah, yeah. He can't just go around gutting every foe that he finds or comes across. But in this next page, it's very interesting. Like I hadn't read this in a couple of years, and I forgot that Wolverine went kind of pacifist in the beginning of this fight.
Yeah,
He
because he doesn't
actually
want
apologizes.
to. Yeah, yeah. I used to be like you, Hulk. Love to scrap more than anything. I have more important things to do, Hulk. I'm not going to fight you today. And tries to walk off.
you know, man, it's so interesting, and I McFarlane is just firing on all cylinders here. His the way that everything's kind of laid out, like he's not doing the crazy layouts that DC kind of stifled him with,
Hmm.
or tried to stifle him after a while. But yeah, when he walks away, the Hulk's not going to stand for that.
Yeah. Before we move on, we've got to point out the coloring mistakes between these two pages.
Yes, yes,
We start with Wolverine and his mask is brown. The very next page, his mask is black. The bottom of the page, it goes back to brown again.
and then the
And,
next
and
page
it's not a
is black,
shadowing thing. Huh?
and yeah, and then the next page is black again.
Yeah. And it's not a shadowing thing. It's just a screw up.
Yeah, it's an oversight by the either editorial staff, colorist, but it falls on that because Todd's not coloring, he's just inking. So no matter what, the color's going to be black on the original pages.
So I wonder, you're looking at an older trade paperback of it,
Yeah.
and it still has the coloring mistake. I really wonder if like newer reprints of this have fixed the coloring in it, or if it still looks like this.
Yeah, I don't know because I don't know how many times this book's been reprinted as a standalone issue, but I'll see if I have anything or any newer trade paperbacks or a compendium or something like that um, that might have newer colors. My guess is if there's an omnibus, they fixed it at that point, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah. Oddly enough, this has not had a facsimile book come out that I know of,
No,
which
no,
is
it hasn't, which is interesting.
one more thing before we jump out of these pages too. Again, this whole sequence of Wolverine, the close up on his face where he's just gritting his teeth, he is ready to go.
Yeah.
And then the next panel, it's like you see it's just half his face, but his hand is in the shot with his claws retracting in.
Yep.
And
Yeah, it's very interesting.
and then even the Hulk, there's that like profile of the Hulk. And this is one thing I love about McFarlane's Hulk too. You see the bone structure in his cheeks, and
Hmm.
like his profile face is almost a straight line going down. I mean, there's the brow, but then his nose just barely peeks out, and that
Yeah.
space between his like upper lip is just like a straight down,
Oh man,
It's
and
it's not like ape-like or anything. It's just different. It's like,
it's alien like,
yeah,
if
it is. It's
anything.
more alien-like.
And I just want to say for our Canadian friends watching, Wolverine definitely said sorry.
Or if you were watching the 80s X-Men cartoon, he says, "Sorry, mate."
That's right. I don't know why he was Australian then. Um, so we get this next page, and obviously he starts to walk away, and the Hulk's not going to have it with this amazing jumping towards us, speed lines. Then you'll die today.
Yeah, all of this is great. I think when Wolverine hops off the ground into the Hulk's face and like uses it to springboard himself out of reach and into that like awesome pose.
Yeah,
Perfect,
and
perfect crouch.
and before we get to that, we have to put all of the comics fans in their place right now because on this second panel, they mention when we first met in Canada, way back in issue 180, proving that the first appearance of Wolverine is in Hulk 180. Eat it, fanboys.
That is when they first met.
Yeah. First appearance of Wolverine, Hulk 180. You heard it
It's
here.
noted in the official Marvel comic itself.
Yes, by who was that?
It
Who was
says
Bob?
Bob
Bob Harris. It's by Bob Harris.
Harris.
So, but yes, perfect, perfect scene here of Wolverine trying not to give in to the berserker rage by
Mhm.
moving away from the Hulk every time the Hulk goes to attack him, and, the Hulk really wants a fight.
Well, yeah, like I said, he's at his crankiest because there's no moonlight making him even the least bit docile. He is in
Yeah.
full anger mode here, and he's gonna taunt Wolverine completely into it. I mean, that thunderclap, you could see the pain of what it did to Wolverine in that middle panel of like his the close up on Wolverine's face.
Yeah, yeah, Wolverine's in excruciating pain, probably can't hear too well right now, very disoriented, very angry, and, he's getting messed up, and that panel of him leaning against the tree really shows us that, like, this is the transition point. He's hurt, he's pissed, and which one of these things is going he's gonna give into? Is he gonna give into the rollover and just take the beating, or is he going to go full feral? And, the next 3 panels, these little tiny panels, they say it all.
Oh man, it's great. All that the narration. He wants it. I want it. All right. And then out of his mouth in a word bubble. All right.
And
Sick.
then, right, and then the next page, the all right is all right, like, he is just full berserker mode, and, this middle panel, it didn't it on our previous try at this, it inspired some conversation, and I wanna go over that again because, the comic book trope of the ripped shirt and all that, I'm not sure exactly how this shirt still holds on up, and it's still attached to the Hulk, but the straw that broke the camel's back of the reason why Todd left Marvel, is Spider-Man 15 or 16, I forget what the number is, I guess it's 16. Um, he drew a panel where Shatterstar puts a sword into Juggernaut's eye, and they wouldn't let him do it. And Marvel cited the comics code, and Todd said, "Show me the comics code." And they're like, "Well, it's just basically how we interpret it." And then Todd pointed out, "You let Frank Miller take Bullseye and eviscerate and impale Elektra with her own sai." And they said, "Well, the sai didn't come through her body. It just went to the clothing and it made like a tent."
Mhm.
And so with that in mind, I just wonder if Todd originally drew the claws coming through the Hulk and they made him redraw it, or if he knew that he couldn't do it at that point because he was just Todd McFarlane. He wasn't he wasn't million
Mhm.
comics selling Todd, but this panel is so interesting to me because of that, as well as the only panel in this comic that is an odd shape.
Yeah, I took it the shape as like the swing of Wolverine's arm is like pulling the panel up with it. So it's like
Yeah.
that's how I interpret it. I mean, you make a good point. I think it was probably he knew not to do it because, like you said, he didn't have the cachet at this point to just do whatever he wanted.
Right.
Um, but it is hilarious to think that the Hulk skin that's pretty much impenetrable, Wolverine's claws are able to cut it, but can't get through the back of that shirt.
Yeah, yeah, and the shirt is hanging on by a thread. The other thing I'll point out about the shape, the one thing that maybe makes me think that, you're right about what you said, the motion lines, but also the shape of the panel is kind of in a claw shape if you look at how he drew the claws on the cover.
This would be an interesting question to ask Todd if anybody ever did an interview with him.
But you can watch my first interview with him, and I didn't get to ask him about this, but it will be noted for the second Todd McFarlane chat, which hopefully happens this year.
Well, I would definitely love to hear. This would be a good one to like really kind of put in front of his face and just get his thoughts if he remembers like why he did it. But just he'll
Yeah.
come up with some reason,
Oh, I'm sure,
you
bud.
he'll come up with some like, well, I was thinking that, but but no, this whole like little 4 panel sequence because yes, even this black panel at the bottom that is a panel.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
sequence of like Wolverine. All right. and then you get the stab, and then you get the first person perspective again of Wolverine. Just, I imagine he is just going hacking away at the Hulk's
Yeah.
chest right there, and then the
Yeah,
blackout.
the fourth panel is lights out. It's just such a fantastic page. And we flip the page and you see Wolverine without even reading the narration. You know that he is just screaming into the wind.
Yeah, and I like the wind lines are whipping around him too at the
Yeah.
same time. I mean, there's just so much like animal veracity of going on in that one panel.
Yeah. Yeah. And he says he's howling when you read it, but you just take the words out of it and you can still tell what's going on. I mean, yeah, it's so effective. And then he starts to walk away and you get some more effective, just amazing facial expressions by Todd.
And the dialogue to match. He says, like a wild animal, I ripped him apart. The worst thing is, I'm glad, with that grin.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the slight head turn, the eyes, oh shit. And the Hulk is back up and
Yep.
angrier, much angrier.
Yep. Let's try that again. And now it's like commercial break. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is a storytelling device that works because you want to give the reader the experience of, oh, this is not just one round. This is multiple rounds. And
Mhm.
Peter David is kicking ass and taking names with this script. And obviously Todd is too. And it is just absolutely an energetic comic. But it did fool me at first because I thought, as you know, there might be a second issue of the two of them going at it because the last panel of this page is a photo of Bruce and Betty, and it's kind of like a trope to use a photograph to end
Mhm.
an issue or a
Yep.
story or even a movie
Yep.
sometimes.
Yeah, if it had ended here, you'd be like, "Man, that was fast." It would have been a little deflating to just end with the whole coming back after Wolverine, but at the same time, you're thinking, "Oh, I get another issue of this."
Yeah, yeah. But we do get a commercial break of Quartermain and Rick. Rick? Rick.
Yep, right. But this is also kind of like this fight has to end somewhere. Either these characters aren't going to die, so they're either going to fight to the death, or somebody's got to interrupt them and break it up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we've got to reintroduce Rick and Clay again to get to that point eventually. But before we get back to them again, we got to get back to round two.
That's right. And so the page flip gives us a little more Betty with the snow globe because there's snow all over this issue and then they're really intersecting three storylines, but we jump right back into the action.
And this round goes a lot faster. I mean, like it feels more frenetic and like just a constant, like tit for tat, blow for blow.
Mhm.
There, I mean, before it was like Wolverine didn't want any part of it. He was just trying to kind of get away. The Hulk was doing it, and then Wolverine finally unleashes for a page. And this is just like every panel is like one of them's getting the hit in.
Yeah, yeah, and I really enjoy the second panel here. I'm just kind of noticing it now is this like the barrage of claw attacks from Wolverine in white with those speed lines. Like he is just going for it, but the Hulk's got another tactic to use. His brute strength as he tries to he picks up Wolverine by the hands and
Yeah,
either tries to snap his arms in half, snap the claws in half, or rip his arms out of the socket.
possibly all at the same time.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that one panel you're talking about, I think if you were just like trying to breeze through this and read it real fast, you would miss that. And that
yeah,
is a great detail of that flurry of claw hands just slashing at the Hulk.
yeah. With those the speed lines, but I think the reason why you breeze past it is because you you're looking at snow the entire time.
Mhm.
So
And it's
this
white.
being this being white
Yeah.
doesn't help. It might be the only fault of this comic is the colorist.
I think so. And I mean, some of the parts I like the coloring. I think it's the inconsistency,
Yeah,
particularly with Wolverine's mask, because I mean, it even happens again here. I mean, on this page we're talking about, it's black, On the next page, it starts out black on the top panel, and then the next panel down, it's brown, and then the next panel, it's brown, and then the bottom. Well, the bottom is shadow, but it's black again.
Yeah, yeah. It probably plays tricks on your mind and does take you out of it a little bit. But
Yeah.
the red use of the kind of like friction when he's using the claws, and then also Wolverine's narrating the fact. And it's interesting because the narration is obviously not going to be in the Hulk, because
Hmm.
he doesn't he vocalizes everything. He doesn't think anything. He just
Yeah.
vocalizes everything.
Yeah.
But Wolverine kind of points out that he has a version of the healing factor. Every time he slashes him, it seems like the cells reproduce quicker and he just heals a lot quicker.
He even says that in the flurry panel. He says, "I cut him again. He heals even faster.
Yeah.
That he gets tougher and stronger, harder to hurt." So that's kind of the Gray Hulk isn't the like gets madder, gets stronger type of Hulk. But I guess he does probably in this like new moon or whited out moon kind of situation. He probably does like his metabolism reacts a lot quicker, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. But they just do a really good job, David and McFarlane, of telling this, giving us enough information, but letting the action really speak for itself. And you got him slashing the crap out of him, and then at that one panel where the blood starts coming out of his back,
Hmm.
and Hulk, I think he's had enough at that point, and takes him by one hand and throws him through a tree.
Yeah, grabs him by the arm and smashes into that tree. But then another good Wolverine crouch.
Yeah,
Him coming up. There's another weird coloring thing where it looks like his leg is flesh colored coming up out of the boot, at least on
yeah.
my copy.
No,
Does it look
it's
that way
on
on
mine.
YouTube?
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
Yeah. Ah,
It's just inconsistency. I mean, it's very
yeah.
interesting, like such a high production level on these things in an era where Marvel was actually producing good-looking books, and then there's this.
Yeah. That top panel kind of something says Frank Miller in that to me. The very top one where where Wolverine's on his back slashing him. There's something about the angle and I don't
Hmm.
know what it is.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, it's
interesting
clearly
that
McFarlane, but it's like the pose or something. The positioning makes me think of the Wolverine miniseries.
I mean, maybe I'll look at it after. I wonder, he might have swiped something. It's not like McFarlane wasn't looking at Frank Miller.
Yeah. Anyway,
The next page is the best page in the book.
those two eyes and the reflection in each other's eyes.
Nobody does stuff like this. You don't see this in comics that often, if at all.
And, I mean, all of it. Like it's a close up of the eyes, and then their faces, and then the collision.
Yeah, yeah. It is the what's the phrase?
Immovable object meets unstoppable
Force.
force. Is
Yes,
that it?
yes. Immovable object or unstoppable force meets immovable object.
Yeah,
That's what this is, and it's amazing. But the Hulk's gonna win it because
it's his book.
yeah, it's his book. Inside Baseball. This is a Hulk book, but also he is 40 tons, whatever
Mhm.
his weight is. But still, like, just you feel everything that's about to happen as it's happening. And like this would be $100,000 page.
Man, I can't imagine what this goes for today. I think you in your interview didn't Todd say most of this stuff was gone, like he got rid of, or not got rid of, but like sold
He's
off most of this Marvel stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he sold off a lot of it. He kept some stuff, but the money pages, for the most part, got sold off. But yeah, this would easily be $100,000 page if it hit the open market tomorrow.
I mean, it's aside from the cover. Well, I mean, there's a bunch of good pages with both the characters in this one, but I think the whole layout, as we've already discussed, from the eyes, their faces, the collision, and then the Hulk just like slamming him away, and that very small panel at the bottom. Yeah, this is definitely a money page, as you would say.
Yeah, and then the following page, I love this left skinny panel. The Hulk just
Mhm.
very pleased with himself. Uh, because he knows that he could take out Wolverine if he really wanted to.
And here's the thing too, Wolverine in this era was vulnerable.
Yeah.
He could be beat, he could be knocked out. He could be, cut up enough that, I mean, in his miniseries, he got beaten by wooden swords, practice
Yeah,
swords.
that's
You
right.
know?
He did.
I mean, so and that's what I like that version of Wolverine. I like him to be like super tough and heal and be able to be in a fight and fearless to go into any fight. But there
Yeah.
were times that he would just he would get, you know, knocked out of the fight somehow. In fact, in this Fall of the Mutant story that it's getting ready to go into, he gets damaged so bad that he's like kind of sidelined for almost like a whole issue of the fight of the big
Hmm.
climactic battle of Fall of the Mutants in Dallas. So, yeah, if the Hulk wanted to and just pounded away, I mean, and especially since it's already being established that he's healing super fast, it doesn't matter how much Wolverine hacks and slashes at him, he's just healing up immediately. That
Yeah.
eventually the Hulk is just going to knock him like completely unconscious, even if his bones aren't broken.
Right.
So
Right. The Hulk knows. Right. The Hulk knows. I mean, he even says it. He says in the getting up again. Good. I want this to last a long time. Like the Hulk knows that Wolverine can take it, but the
yeah,
Hulk also knows that he could take him and rip him apart. Which, if you flash forward 20 something years to the Damon Lindelof, Lenny Yu Hulk, Ultimate Hulk and Wolverine, he rips him literally in half.
I mean, after like not just this, but the other times they've met up since then, it's like, where do you go from there? It's like,
Yeah, you have to up the stakes, but unfortunately, this fight can't last forever. And
no,
the Hulk gets shot with something, and it's by Quartermain. I'm not exactly sure what. Oh, they're on top of the van.
yeah, it's
Okay,
like a weird like dome thing there at the top of
yeah,
the, or is that the man?
I think so because you can see the machinery of it go across the bottom of this panel. Um, Unless they invented a spaceship. I don't know. It's very,
Yeah,
very strange. But love the McFarlane, the gun. He kind of did a Rob Liefeld gun before Liefeld did a Liefeld gun.
yeah. I mean, it is like a bazooka or something though, because it does enough to stun the Hulk just to get his attention, which is all they wanted to do. And Quartermain just gives both of them basically like a lecture, like they're two children fighting, like they're two brothers that have been picking on each other, and it's gone too far. And then it's like, and you, Wolverine, don't you have anything better you should be doing?
I mean, it really is like the two of them. If you like were to stretch out the entire history of the Hulk and Wolverine, they are like two brothers.
Yeah.
I mean, and not to go off on a tangent, but one of my favorite moments of the Infinity Gauntlet was when the two of them, when they call the heroes in and Hulk and Wolverine are on the rooftop in New York City and they're commiserating.
Hmm.
They're bonding like they are brothers because the two of them are the outsiders of the Marvel universe within the bigger picture
Right.
of all of the superheroes.
And then Adam Warlock comes up and basically points that out to him.
Yeah,
No.
yeah,
Yeah, that was a great moment in Infinity Gauntlet. And if you haven't seen that, Dave and I did like a 3-hour conversation on the
that's
Infinity Gauntlet on
yeah.
a
You could,
Sunday sit down. I have it in a playlist on my channel, and I'm sure Dave has it somewhere on his channel as
yeah.
well.
It's on the book club part of my playlist, and yeah, you can watch the breakdown, the big breakdown of the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah. So
So,
they get their
you
dressing down, and now Wolverine's like, Wolverine is the first to be like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I do. I do have something I need to be doing.
and here we go again, brown to black to brown, all on one page.
One page.
But this is a nice little, kind of sobering moment for the two of them, except the brattiness of the Hulk, the anger of the Hulk comes out, and he smashes something even more than it's already smashed.
I like the dialogue of, you're just like all the others who always thought they were better than me. Well, now I'm better than all of you. And like you said, he's like kind of like a brat, just like, there, I said it, smash.
All of you. By the way, okay, now this makes sense. What we were looking at is Quartermain and Rick in front of their circular shaped van on top of the overpass.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah. Well, I guess Todd might have been looking at the Watchmen when he was drawing that van because it really looks like like the owl ship.
It does. It's a lot more circular there than it was on the very first page. So I don't know. He had so much fun doing this Hulk Wolverine battle, he forgot what the car looked like by the time he got to
There
that
we go.
point.
There we go. And
So
so
then the Hulk just scoops up the van and jumps off with it.
I really liked the narration. I can't remember the last time I wanted a cigar this bad. As a uh former smoker of a bunch of years, a stressful situation comes up after I was not a smoker anymore, and sometimes I'd have that thought like, "Oh man, I could really use a cigarette right now."
Wolverine was still allowed to smoke at this point, though.
Yes, he no longer is because, children and stuff.
Yes. Children that don't read comics, but
Yeah, exactly.
anyway,
Um,
so then we wrap up with Betty and the snow globe that we've been seeing. And she throws it down into the ground, and it says something about the vicious cycle, a cycle that even only be broken at great expense.
yeah, and there we go. We literally meted a circle because the title of this issue is A Vicious Circle, and
Mhm.
it's the last kind of thing that's said in the issue.
So, and that's this issue, and yeah, this is definitely the best of this entire Peter David McFarlane era run. It's probably the best issue of the Peter David run altogether, which is saying a lot because he does work with other great artists along the way, like Dale
Sure.
Keown, Adam Kubert has a run on it. So many good
Purves,
artists.
Jeff
Yeah, yeah, Jeff
Purvis.
Purves and Purvis, however you say his name, and
Yeah,
Gary Frank. I mean, so many, but this is the, like I said at the beginning, this is one that people collect just for this cover. If you're a Wolverine fan but not a Hulk fan, you want this issue. If
yeah,
if you're just a McFarlane fan, you want this issue. If none of the rest of this run, I mean, so yeah, I would probably say this has to be the best of the entire Hulk Peter David run, not just the McFarlane Peter David run, but the Peter David run.
yeah. I agree. And not having read all of the Peter David run, but I was reading the Dale Keown stuff when it came out, and I've looked back at some of the Jeff Purv stuff, and this just it is, you're in and you're out, and it's just you're satisfied. There's nothing unsatisfying about this issue.
And you could read this issue and not read another
Yeah,
Hulk issue after this. I mean, it's there for the X-Men fans to jump in, but I would say this made people stick around at least through the rest of this Ground Zero story. It's funny because this is part of the grounds. You're reading the trade paperback called
yeah,
Ground Zero. So this story is known as the Ground Zero storyline, although back then they didn't call it like Ground Zero Part 1 and it's going to be part of the
right.
trade. It was just, here's this issue of the Hulk, and then at the end we're like, oh, that was the Ground Zero storyline.
I guess that's part of the really charm of Peter David's writing, is that this was, you could read one and done. Like, you could read the
Mhm.
next issue also and not have any clue what's going on. They give you a little bit of the plot. We know the leader's doing what the leader's doing. We know that Betty's trying to figure out and looking back at the love of her life, and where is he? Is he okay? But you don't have to read the issue before, and you don't have to
Yep.
read the issue after. And it's kind of the sign of an excellent, it is the sign of an excellent comic.
Yeah. I mean, like the next issue is Man Bull. And then I think
Yeah.
after that, he takes on like Man Droids or something. And then you do kind of get the wrap up. You're
Yeah, you
building
get
towards
the
the wrap
leader.
up of 340, where it gets to 344 or 345. But I mean, we're still just getting this like little one-off monster of the month, which is
Yep.
kind of what you want from a Hulk book. You want him to you want him to fight something, and if he's going to fight like another hero, Wolverine is just awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a perfect matchup, and one that happens in Wolverine's first appearance in Hulk 180.
So that's pretty much all we got on this one, Dave. Unless you got any closing thoughts.
No, I think we said everything, and I really do stick by the fact that this is just an absolutely great comic, and to all those people out there that own these books but have never looked in them, You're really doing yourself a disservice by not reading it.
Yeah, if you got this one in a slab and you've never read it, crack it open and read it.
Now, and I understand that not everybody's gonna go for that. So, hunt
I
down
know.
a Ground Zero trade paperback. Because I gotta say, if you've never seen these late 80s, early 90s trade paperbacks, they were printing on this thicker stock white paper that made all the colors pop. And I really do enjoy reading it in this older format
Mhm.
because, as me and you talked about off camera, the printing of Marvel Comics in this era was at its worst.
Yeah, like you said off camera, I pointed out how even my copy here has the black printer lines going down the side of the page where they were
Yeah,
just running this stuff off and throwing it out there, and sometimes it'd be offset, and there is some charm to that, but at the same
sure.
time, at the same time, this era of Marvel printing is pretty craptacular. Like
Yeah,
I'll say
it,
it. So
it really is. And while I do enjoy reading single issues, I try and read in the best format, or the one that does the format that complements the art the most.
all right, so that's all we got.
And remember, read your comics. When you see Todd, buy Todd.